Hello, this is AP Computer Science. My name is John Maxwell. Today we're going to look at the use of loops, particularly in conjunction with strings, because that's what our module focuses on. Without a loop, it would be nearly impossible to go through any index collection like an array, which we learned about last unit, or a string, which is an index collection of characters, or it would just make everything so much more complicated if a loop was not a central part of the Java language. So here we have a loop. We'll just dive right in and explain the mechanics of it. It has a start, I equals 0, a stop while it's less than car length dot 3, and we'll explain why it's minus 3. And then I plus plus, which is the change portion or the incrementer. So it's a start, when it stops, and how it changes, all in one statement, separated out by semicolons. So anything inside these braces is what gets executed. So having explained the loop, let's get to what this program does. And I need to give credit. This is something similar to what I saw in an AP classroom video. It starts with a string. Ford is a car you can afford. And I just want you to notice that Ford, F-O-R-D, appears twice in the string. But it's not the same. This is capital F and here's lowercase f. So I call a method in the string class called toLower and set its value back into car. And so what happens is, car is all lowercase. It, in other words, knocks the capital out of the word Ford. So we're going to look for Ford and we're going to try to count how many times it's found. Count equals 0. So if you note the explanation here, I don't have to check if Ford is starting at position R onward because there's not enough characters in the string to do it. I want to stop here at length minus 3 at the O. Right? It's okay that I do the minus 4, but like I don't want to go to minus 3. So that's why I want to stop at that point. No point looking past what logically a place where it could fit. When there's only 3 letters, you won't be finding a 4-letter word. But let's dive into it. So if car.substring I plus search length, well, the search length is 4 of Ford, so I plus 4, we're checking to see if it's in the first 4 characters. In other words, index 0, 1, 2, and 3. Recall that substring never includes the end index. If that segment of car dot equals search, which is 4, then we'll increase the count. And indeed it does right off the bat. When the for loop I equals 0, it will find 4 in the first 4 characters, indices 0 through 3. And then the for loop goes up and it will compare the ORD space and see if that equals. And it doesn't. This is not true. So then I goes up and it will compare the next 4 letters, ORD space I. Next, I goes up, it'll compare the next 4 letters, D blank IS, dis, nope. And it will go through the space all the way through the space. That's not Ford either. But when it gets to here, it will find Ford just before the end and increase count. So this is a pretty typical search algorithm. It's also one that you will find on the AP exam. And by stating that, I mean it's an if statement searching for something or looking at an element in a collection and seeing if it matches a certain criteria. An if statement within a for loop, which is intended to iterate through the collection, in this case, a string. So this is a standard algorithm, and you can watch the video on the College Board. Next, we went over to Coding Bat. Let's see. I think we went to Coding Bat and we solved some problems. Okay. I don't think it's this Coding Bat that we went to. Um, I'm logged on to two different places. So maybe I'm not logged on. Well, let's do something else. Okay. This is a great site. All you have to do is type in AP Computer Science Exam Past FRQs, and you get to all the FRQs that have ever been given. So as you move closer to the exam, I think what you want to do is visit this pretty well. And so there's a string problem on the 2023 exam. And here it is. It's called sign, sign, everywhere a sign. Okay. An electronic sign, and the text to be displayed on or represented by a sign class. We'll write the sign class, which contains a constructor and two methods. The sign has two parameters. The first is a string that consists of a message to be displayed on the sign, and the second is the int. So get this. If the width of the sign is 15, then only 15 characters can appear, and the remaining characters in the final line. And if it's 17, it breaks out evenly, but surely doesn't look very good. And then in a line, or the width of the sign being everything on cell, please come in, it fully fits within the 40 characters. So it has two methods. It calculates the number of lines that are needed given a message, and it returns a string which contains the messages broken into lines separated by semicolons, or null if the message is empty. So they give a number of examples, and I'm going to give you the link to this particular problem so that you can follow along in another tab. But let's actually look at the solution. So there are solutions here, scoring guidelines, okay, and lots of good information. So scrolling through the first problem to get track of the second problem. And here we go. Here's the solution. Okay, you get 1 point for saying public class sign. And I know we haven't covered classes yet, but I did last week with Scooby-Doo class. So you know something about them and you've seen examples in the text. After the class statement, there are two instance variables that were described in the narrative. One is a string, which is the message, and the other is an int, which is recording the width of the sign. And by nature, they're private, and so you get 1 point if you can declare private instance variables that are described in the written problem. Okay, although you haven't any experience writing a constructor, we did introduce it when we talked about this Scooby-Doo class. The constructor shares the same name as the class, sign, everywhere sign. Hey, look, there's no return type here in a constructor. Pay attention, right? None. The return type, I suppose, is the object itself. So M comes in and its value gets stored in message, and W comes in as a formal parameter, and message width is receiving that value. So here's the number of lines. Okay. If the len remainder width equals 0, hey, there's no need for an extra line. Okay, right? There's no need for an extra line. It's return length divided by width, because in the case of a message that we looked at and a length of 17, it fit evenly on two lines. But if it doesn't fit on two lines, and I'll point back again here, right here, right? 17 fits evenly on two lines. If it doesn't fit on two lines, you have this little thing here. Okay, so let's look back at it and say return length divided by width, which will give you the number of times width wholly goes into length. Okay, but there would be a remainder. It's not equal to 0, so we just add 1 to fit that extra line. And so the number of lines returns int the number of lines that are required. So to get lines, what we have to do is count out the string kind of and decide on which line it goes. And so we get the number of lines needed, and remember it said return null if the lines needed was 0, meaning the message was empty. Okay, so what happens is it will return null. Other than that, we're going to get the sign lines, which is all of the lines separated out by semicolons. And we'll go through the lines needed, 1 through, in the first example where the line length is 15, that would be 3. But the number of lines needed is whatever number of lines it's needed, and then they go I++. So it's going to go 1 through the lines needed. Okay. Remain less than. Okay. So what we're going to do is add to an empty string the I, which is 1 minus 1 is 0. 0 times width would be, in the example of the first 15, for example, I, 0, which is 1 times 15. So it grabs the beginning and the end. 0 times width is 0, takes from that position and adds a semicolon. You can look at this a little bit further and dissect it, but that will be adding in the for loop the number of lines that wholly fit on the sign. But what happens here is we take sign lines and add this, which is the partial line, if needed. Okay, if lines needed minus 1 is 0, 0 times width, it won't be adding anything. But if lines needed minus 1 is bigger, then we're just going to grab from that point to the end of the string. So it's a difficult problem. Let's see how it's scored. Class header, 1 point. Private instance variables, 1 point. Properly declaring a construction header, 1 point. Headers for each of the methods, 1 point. So you're already 4 points in by doing absolutely no calculation. Most people could figure out the number of lines. 1 point, perhaps a partial point there. Number of lines returns the appropriate value, 1 point. Really, there's only 3 points for the get lines. Returns null. If you just return null, then you get that 1 point. Pay attention to the returns. And use of the substring and length are equivalent on string objects within get lines. You can see how it would be scored. So now I want to switch over to um, the Rupe and run over some coding bad problems. So let's go through double char. Well, it's not there. Okay. Given a string, return a string for every char in the original. Let's see, are they really this one? Who's logged in here? I'm not logged in. Seems like I got logged out. Let's just go in because I had it done. Now you know my password. It's all asterisk. Double char. Okay. Okay, I'm going to create a string called back and I'm going to build it. I don't want to like mess with the str string, which is given as a parameter. So I'm going to create spot, which is the character at that spot. So I run through the str from 0 to less than its length, and I say spot equal, and here's how to extract one character of a string. I, comma, I plus 1. And then add spot twice to the back string, which I return back. Okay, there's an example of going through a string and extracting each element at a time and adding it twice to another string. So let's look at this. Return the number of times that hi appears anywhere in the string. So the number of times, well, if it says int, I'm going to declare what I need to return right away. And in this case, int count equals 0. It's just kind of good practice to look at the method signature and go, what am I working with? What do I need to return? So I create I equals 0 because I'm using a while loop. Start I, stop I is less than str.length, change I plus plus. But I chose a while loop and the use of the word break so that I can show you a handy thing. So I look and see where hi is in the str, and I store it in a variable called place, and if place is not equal to -1, which is what index of returns if it's not found, then I'm increasing count and going ahead and making the string a substring of itself from place plus 2. And why 2? Because hi has 2 characters. So I'm starting the next search while from the point after the first or located hi is in the string. Else, if it's -1, break, and it breaks completely out of the loop and will execute the statement past the loop, which is return count, because there's no more highs. Let's click. Now I chose the while loop because it allows you to hit break, and you can do that in a for loop, but like it provides a mechanism for early exit, something I'm down with. So I know these are homework, so good luck right here. Okay, cat dog. Return true if cat dog appear the same number of times in a given string. So in this case, what I've done is create a function called count pet string and pet. So I pass the string and dog and then cat respectively, and it's the same code. As soon as I don't find the name of the pet in the string, I break. Otherwise, I increase the count, and this time +3 because cat and dog are both of length 3. So I can return dog equal cat, okay, which is going to boil down to a Boolean value after I've called count pet twice. So use the same algorithm as in the previous problem to solve this one. Let's look at count code as the last of our examples. Return the number of times that the string code appears anywhere in a given string, except any letter for D. So cope and code count. In other words, I guess code, right? Hey, same thing. -3. Will I go to the end? Okay, if I'm doing I plus 2 and I plus 4, I'm going to have an out of range index error. Okay. If I go too past the point where I can no longer find a 4-letter word, if I get to -3, there's no way that there's a 4-letter word 3 characters from the end. Other than that, the loop is pretty standard. So I'm going to go I plus 2. Does that equal co? I'm going to just compare if the two characters, 0 and 2, and that gets 0 and 1 and compares it to co, and then, it will then compare if I plus 3 and I plus 4. Get that? I skipped over the third letter equals E. Then count plus plus. And it will do that for every value at I. So it will first look at there, and then it will examine it starting at position 1 and then position 3 as it goes through until it gets too close to the end. -3, string.length -3, and then it will stop. But it says as long as the first two are co and the last one is E, who cares what the middle one is? Count plus plus, and we return count, and it works. Wonder if I have a next one? No. I think I've solved count code, cat, dog, count high. These are the coding bat problems, so although I did 4 of them, you still have 16 more to go if you're watching this video. If you missed it, then you're on your own with them, and you're never on your own if you just reach out and let me know what issues you're experiencing, and if you need some help, just let me know. So thank you again, and we'll talk to you next week.